All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. We're excited to have Kat Kelleher with us, who is the Conservation Program Assistant for the New Hampshire Lakes and the Lake Coast Program. So we are excited to learn more about that and potentially a GSA partnership with them.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, guys. I'm really excited. Again, my name's Kat. I work in the conservation program for New Hampshire Lakes, and I have a passion for volunteers, so I'm super excited to talk to you guys today and let you know a bit about our Lake Host program. The title of my talk is the Lake Host program, our lake's first line of defense. As some of you were able to sleuth out, we believe this is one of the boat ramps we staff at Great East out on the border of New Hampshire and Maine. Okay. So with nearly 1,000 lakes in New Hampshire and ponds, it's an important part of our quality of life, our economy, and our heritage in New Hampshire. Some of you may know the lakes for your recreational times. Some of you may know it for your water supply, like me. I live in Concord. We have a beautiful lake we cannot touch that, keeps our entire town hydrated. Basically, from one end to the other, lakes help sustain New Hampshire. A major threat to the health of these lakes, though, and our ability to use them are aquatic invasive species. Aquatic invasive plants and animals hitchhike between water bodies, primarily on boats, trailers, and recreational gear that's not been properly cleaned, drained, or dried. You may have heard about invasive species as a threat in the sense that they can beat out native plants, but their effect is a lot more severe than just replacing what's already present in a lake. In New Hampshire, we have plenty of lakes that already have native plant growth, but aquatic invasive species are worse because they are capable of causing extinctions in native plants and in native animals. The native plants and animals rely on the space that the aquatic invasive species take, and they can rely on the native species that they kill. So even if we have Eurasian milfoil moving in where there's native milfoil, our native fish and our native animals rely on our native milfoil. They don't rely on the invasive. And so by losing that, we reduce biodiversity, and we see a lot of competition with the native organisms for the limited resources that we have in our lakes. Our lakes aren't infinite in size, and it means they aren't infinite in the resources they can give to our native species. There's just not enough room for everyone. This competition and the altering of habitats that comes when native species are present can result in really huge economic impacts because we rely heavily on tourism in New Hampshire, and also it can fundamentally disrupt our lakes. Aquatic invasive plants and animals, they can make recreation unpleasant and even dangerous. If you remember to just one slide ago, we had a young girl sort of swarmed in a mass of milfoil. They can disrupt the ecological balance of water bodies by removing fish habitat, by removing the native species we know that stay in their one specific area of the lake. And they can reduce the shoreline property values when we don't have the ability to use the waters that we're living on. We can see a great reduction in the value of that area, and they're difficult and expensive to control. There are non-native plants and there are invasive plants. Invasive plants are plants that have become such a nuisance that it's really hard to get them back under control, and they are notably going to affect the water or the area that they've invaded for a long time. An example for all of these, I've been mentioning Eurasian milfoil. It's not as limited in the water column as its native counterpart. And because of that, it creates these dense mats that you can see. This is dangerous because swimmers and animals have been known to get tangled in it. There have been some drownings. Also, the mats can serve as really great mosquito habitat, which is sort of awful for everyone that's not a mosquito. They also decrease oxygen levels in the water, and that's needed for the fish and the other wildlife that we see in our lakes. So you might be thinking, oh no, is a lake near me infested? It might be. There are 91 lakes in New Hampshire with confirmed infestations of any given aquatic invasive species throughout New Hampshire. These confirmations are done by the Department of Environmental Services. You might know about them over on Hazen Drive in Concord. Basically, they've confirmed that roughly 1 in every 10 lakes in New Hampshire is infested with one or more aquatic invasive species. So the Lake Host Program is our first line of defense in keeping our lakes free of the invasive plants and animals. The Lake Host Program is all across our state, and it helps stop the spread of invasive species before they have the chance to reach our waters. So you may have heard of the Weed Watchers. That's a program of volunteers trained by DES. Those are the people who go out and they look afterwards to see if an infestation has occurred or to see if an infestation is moving across a water body. And the lake hosts try to stop it from happening at the boat ramp before it can get out there. So lake hosts are all over our state. There are a little over 300 paid lake hosts, a little over 300 volunteer lake hosts at, I believe it's 103 boat accesses this year, across New Hampshire. Every year, we conduct roughly 90,000 courtesy boat inspections. That number went up a lot in the pandemic, but 90,000 has roughly been the regular year number. I believe it went up to like 130,000 the first year of the pandemic. But around the state, there are over 600 lake coasts at about 100 boat accesses. And how much coverage there is at each ramp differs pretty greatly from one to another. At some programs, there's only one lake host the entire summer who's staffing on weekends when they can. And at others, there's full-time staffing with a group of 10. If you've been to a major boat ramp in New Hampshire, you may have met a smiling lake host. They're not necessarily active 24/7 on every single ramp, but if you've seen them, you'll know them by that signature lake host blue t-shirt and hopefully a smile. Lake hosts play multiple roles in preventing the spread of aquatic invasive species. A major thing that they do is inspect all of the gear with permission from the boater that's coming into contact with the lake. This can be fishing poles, trailers, boats, ski-doos, whatever people are bringing in. They are looking for suspicious samples, which are specimens of debris or small animals or plant pieces, most likely, and they're submitting it for identification. And they're also collecting important survey data on boater traffic and their prevention efforts. And what I consider the most important, it's all important, but an important role in education that they play is they are teaching boaters the importance of the clean, drain, dry method. So the survey data lake hosts collect is used to track the water bodies boats go to and come from. And at New Hampshire Lakes, we make sure that we have all of the up-to-date state information for not only New England, but sort of our entire northeast corner. So we also have New York, I believe some New Jersey information about what lakes are infested. And so by tracking how many boats come from what infested water bodies or go to what clean water bodies throughout the year, we're helping local programs assess the threat of invasive species on their lakes. Lake hosts also report if boats are motorized or non-motorized. They record when boats are coming and going. They check if boats have ballast tanks. Not all motorized boats have ballast tanks, and those are tanks which hold water and affect how low the boat sits in the water. They record where the boat is registered, and they record the clean, drain, dry status when the boat is entering. These reports paint a pretty detailed picture of how the lake is used and ideally can help influence how ramps are staffed and how these waters are protected. The main duty of a lake host is to provide complimentary boat inspections. And during those inspections, the boat's examined for plants, animals, and debris. And if anything suspicious is found, we are partnered with the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and that specimen is submitted to them for identification. So we aren't only looking at if a boat had something on it, we are identifying what was on it, where it came from, and what water body it came from. During the inspections, boaters are also surveyed again about what they've been doing for their prevention practices. So did they rinse off their boat? Were they just somewhere else this morning and changed their mind and showed up here? And all of these answers are recorded. So we have a vast database of 21 years of thousands of inspections across the state. So it's pretty cool to see how habits have changed across our lakes in New Hampshire through the years. Inspectors, as I mentioned, are also really big educators. They engage with boaters in friendly and educational ways. We are not policy enforcers, but that doesn't mean we can't let people know about policies and teach them about how easy it is to clean, drain, and dry. There are 3 simple steps to the clean, drain, dry method, and cleaning and drying are the law in New Hampshire. And so some people are sometimes surprised to hear that, which is why I think it's so important to do this education. The first thing you do when you leave a water body is clean off all of the plants, animals, debris from not only the boat, but also the trailer and your recreational gear. We don't have spiny water flea, but it can get caught on fishing reels, and it can get caught on the line. Also, underneath the car well, the wheel well. You guys know what I'm talking about. Underneath the wheel well and on the edges of the license plate on a trailer are really common places that can snag those plants as they're leaving. Next, we remind people to drain the water and keep your drain plugs open. Draining is the law in New Hampshire. So if someone has to drain their boat, you're supposed to take your plug and let it drain the whole time that you're driving. And then dry is obviously an important part. We recommend that people allow their boat to dry in the sun for 5 days because that allows plants and animals to fully desiccate. However, you can also do as our fine example in this slide and dry with a towel. So lake hosts are extremely essential to keeping the lakes healthy. Over the last 20 years, we've had over 1 million inspections and 1,650 invasive species removed. This isn't the number of times a plant was removed. That's the number of times a plant was removed during an inspection and positively confirmed as an invasive species. So wow, that's so many. A major issue with invasive species is that they're extremely prolific. And so it isn't uncommon to see them be able to establish from just a small fragment. And so 1,650 saves is extremely important in helping keep our lakes healthy. So what does it mean if you join our team? First, you would sign up and join a program. So ideally a lake near you that is easier for you to get to. You would attend an online training and get your cool lake host gear, such as the Aquatic Invasive ID sheet in the hands of our lake host model here. And then you'd protect the lakes. For a lot of lake hosts, this means spending time at their ramp, talking to some of their neighbors, and reading in the sun. A lot of our ramps are pretty slow for a lot of time. We have some places that only see a few boats a day. We also see other areas where they're near a marina and they get many. But for the most part, the lake host job is being available to educate people in our communities and enjoying some time by the water. And so if you're interested in learning more, you can feel free to check out our Become a Lake Host tab. If you take your phone and you use the camera and mouse over our QR code, it'll take you to a survey for information and you can see the lakes that we staff. Or I'd be happy to answer some questions for you guys. And thank you so much for having me.
I was wondering, once a lake is infected, are there any measures you're doing to try to clean it up?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we at New Hampshire Lakes don't run those efforts. They're typically run by local lake associations or no, I can't speak that confidently for New Hampshire. I don't know if there's an effort on the state side. But there's the possibility to treat and remove certain invasive species. A lot of them depend on the lake that you have as well. So how the effort to remove what invasive species also depends on what kind of water body you're on. So like how shallow is it? How spread is the infestation? And like how does the water source into the lake? So is it like spring fed? Does it come from a river? And so there are different ways. There was a lake in Maine last year that they've been working for, I want to say 15 years on a milfoil removal project. And they were just certified as completely free last year, which means after 3 years of diligent like scuba inspections, there was no standing population. So yes, it is possible. But New Hampshire Lakes isn't the one that does it. It normally comes from a community-based drive because it can take a lot of vigilance and effort.
I know that Lake Pawtuckaway, they have scuba diving every summer. And you can also, especially if you're a kayaker, can go out and surround the area so that boaters and other canoers and stuff don't invade the area where the scuba diver is cleaning the milfoil.
Yeah.
They've been doing that for like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah. I have a friend who does it. Sounds terrifying to me.
Yeah, well, scuba diving is terrifying.
Right.
So.
Does this mean they have to go down and physically take each plant out or what?
Yeah, well, for certain areas, you can't necessarily treat the water if it's a larger population. And so people will go in and what you do is you bag the specimen as you go and then you pull it out because some plants like Eurasian milfoil, even just smaller fragments of them when they break off can spread. So you have to like make sure it's contained before you pull it because you don't want any pieces breaking out and creating new plants.
I'm a lake host on Level Lake, which is in Wakefield. And our town is very cognizant of the fact that the lake residents and residences on the lake are a big asset to the tax base. And the town actually budgets a fund for the event that a type of invasive species should be found, as does our lake association, which has a war chest built up for the what if in case they have to mitigate any kind of invasive species. And just in case somebody might be interested in becoming a lake host, you can do as few or as many shifts as you want to during the season. And people are almost universally very cordial to the lake hosts. Most of the people that are coming and going are boaters. Many of them are fishermen. And so they're very interested in having clean water to fish. And they already know about the lake host program and they're very cooperative. It's very unusual to have somebody that's not cooperative and cordial.
Yes. And if you do have someone who's not, we've got a staff here at New Hampshire Lakes and like we're here as a resource as well. So we'll protect you. But no, our lake hosts are beloved. We get calls from the community often about the work that lake hosts do and how happy they are to see such kind people out in the world and protecting the lakes that we love.
We have a couple questions in the chat,
Yeah.
emphasizing how important the program is. The first question is, how long are the shifts?
It depends on where you're at. The minimum amount of time that someone can be scheduled is 2 hours. That's just a federal requirement that if you show up to a workstation, you have to be there for 2 hours. Actually, nope, that's not the same for volunteers. It depends on where you are. I know that there are some places that only do a couple hours at a time, and there are other places that do 4-hour shifts and others that do 6. It depends on where you're at with the program, with what ramp you're at in the program, because different ramps have different needs.
And we kind of just talked about whether or not boaters would be courteous during inspections, but can anyone refuse it?
Yes, people can refuse it. And at that point, you just have to say, okay, thank you. Like, have a great day. Don't forget to clean, drain, dry. They are complimentary boat inspections. We can't oblige anyone. We had a great story the other year though, from someone who he had a man who came up every day and was like, no, I don't want the boat inspection. And every day the lake host was just greeting them with a smile and was like, okay, have a great day. Like, don't forget to clean, drain, dry. And then one day the boater came up and was like, okay, I'll do it. And they changed their mind. So we tend to opt for the kill them with kindness policy. And it's not very often that people decline.
That's good.
I've never had anybody decline.
Yeah.
You know,
That's good.
it takes 5 to 10 minutes and they answer, maybe 4 or 5 questions, and you look all around their boat, and sometimes they have to wait because there's somebody else launching at the ramp. So it has never been a big deal.
Right.
Is there a cost to the training?
No. Nope. No. Heck no. We want to see more lake hosts. We would not do that. Absolutely not. A lot of our partner programs pay in extra money to extend the staffing that they have, but we receive a grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services to help put on this program every year. And that gets split into payroll funds and also helps pay for the materials that we give lake hosts. So there is no cost to lake hosts for this.
We have another question. Can teenagers do the lake host program?
16 and 17-year-olds can. Unfortunately, we don't have the ability to insure 15 and younger. But bring them back when they're 16 if they're younger. Because we love our lake hosts.
So I have a question.
Yes.
If we were to we've talked about partnering with GSA and with lake hosts, or with New Hampshire Lakes, and we've considered having the lake host would be as a GSA center. So it would be one of our centers really at different lakes. If that were an option, would GSAs be interested in that? With show of hands or your reaction sign, would you be interested in participating as a GSA and a lake host?
Or my heart. Thank you.
I see lots of hands raised. And we already have some, so. Great.
What
That's very
shirt do
helpful
we
to
wear?
us. What, Bobby?
What shirt do we wear?
2.
Oh no, in the middle of summer.
Yes.
You could wear a GSA shirt and a lake host hat. That
That's
might work.
true. That's
There you
true.
So I'm glad to hear that there's some interest in that. We've had conversations with the New Hampshire Lake staff about the possibility of doing a partnership, and we wanted to kind of gauge what our GSA interest would be for that. So if there's some interest, we'll definitely continue those conversations. Veronica would like to know, how much boat and water experience do you think a person should have? Good question.
That's a great question. You don't need boat and water experience because we train you what to look for. And also, knowing how to boat is not the same as knowing where species can get stuck in the trailer. So it's okay. You don't need any experience because we will train you on what you need to know.
Great. Rita would like to know where the training is held.
Right now, we are doing online trainings. So we have video trainings, and then we have a manual that everyone gets with all the information again. And we're doing it this way just because with the changing COVID status, it's just safer for our lake hosts. And so we're not trying to get anyone sick.
Absolutely. Do we need to help folks put boat in water and out?
No, it is not a lake host job to help with that, and it is considered a safety hazard. So it is not your job to help get the boat in or out of the water. Lake host safety comes first, and then right after it is the lake safety with the aquatic invasive species, but your safety is always absolute top.
Ashley would like to know if you have a flyer or a quick one-page info sheet that you could send over so we can share it with friends and communities.
Yes. Would you like one about the lake host program or about the lake host position? I can send both.
Do you want both, Ashley? Both.
Okay, great.
And we will be posting this recording afterwards, and we'll include some links and all of that. And Kat, if you want to send any of those links or the flyers, then I can add those onto the website too.
Yeah, absolutely.
How long does the training take? Is it scheduled over particular days? Or is it something you do on your own?
We have a few live ones this year, but that's just if you want to join the live one, it'll be on your phone. I believe the volunteer is under 2 hours of training altogether. And it counts as volunteer hours, so I'm trying to think. Yeah, it should be under 2 hours because there's the how to do the actual lake host, there's the boater inspection, and then there's a shorter one about what happens when you collect the data from the surveys.
Roz would like to know if there's a list of the lakes that are monitored.
Oh, like the different groups that were on? Yes. Yes, there is. And I can share that.
Great.
We actually just finished the payroll award application process. So we have all the groups that we're working with this year right now. There's 97. Wait, no, there's 78. Sorry. So many numbers.
I don't know if every lake has a leader. I'm not sure what they call the position, but our lake has one person that's kind of in charge of recruiting people for the different shifts. And if you have questions or you need a refresher on something, they're the one that kind of manages our boat ramp. I don't know if every lake works that way.
Yeah, every lake has a coordinator. Yeah. And those are volunteers who, like Bobby said, take care of the staffing for the entire ramp and make sure that their lake hosts are equipped with what they need.
I have a question again. If you sign up for this program, you choose the lake that you volunteer at, or is there a list to choose from? Or do you try to encourage people to go to one where there's more of a need?
There's a list you choose from. So you pick the lake that you want to work at. If you wanted and you were like, no, I don't care about where I work, I want to look for a lake with a need, you can always reach out and I could tell you which ones have talked to me the most about their hiring anxieties. But on the whole, lake hosts pick where they want to go. Yes. We might not be as big as some of the states out west, but you can still catch a pretty big drive in New Hampshire. So we let people
Thank
choose
you.
what's near them.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us
Thank
today.
you.
So I put a
Great
question
job.
into chat
Oh,
that I would like to know about.
Okay.
You know, are you fairly selective in where you assign people? Because the nearest lake to me is Massabesic, and I know there's at least one boat ramp there. But it seems like that area is so large and there are so many options for entering a boat that it's almost a lost cause to
Right.
assign someone there. So
Right.
is there a selection process of where you place people?
so the way our program works is local groups come to us and they say, hey, these are the ramps that we want to staff. And sometimes when they see the data at the end of the year with how many people came through a certain boat ramp, they'll choose not to staff that ramp anymore. And every now and then we'll see them move to a different ramp instead. But it comes from the community choosing what ramps they would like to staff.
I see.
Yeah. We actually had a group this year who there is a ramp that's down the street from another one, and they realized that they had enough funding that they could add more. They were like, we've got enough people here. We can do this. Like, we can cover that ramp. And I see that people are going over to that ramp and avoiding us. And so they added a third ramp this year to their lake because they were like, you can't get around.
Cool.
Great. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Kat. This is very informative, and I think we have lots of GSA interest in becoming a lake host.
I really appreciate all of your guys' questions too. It's been a great help to me and I really appreciate it.
Great job.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day, everybody.
You too. Bye.
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 Thank you. Cheers.